What was the worst thing you've ever done? As a hormonal teenager, I was in love with a classmate who sat in front of me in class. She had a habit of chewing on her pen. I remember one time we were joking about how gross it was that she had already bitten a hole in it with her teeth, and you could see her saliva starting to collect inside the pen. About an hour later, I took that pen from her desk, went to the bathroom, poured her saliva onto my junk, and started masturbating. Afterward, I put the pen back on her chair. That's the most messed up thing I've ever done. I remember feeling guilty for days. In 8th grade, I saw my classmate sitting at her desk, her chest touching the edge of it. When no one was in the classroom, I went up to her desk and licked it. I'm not proud of that act. One time, we were visiting my relatives, whose daughter was very attractive. Unnoticed by everyone, I took a key from their house keychain and put it in my pocket. Later, I went to a workshop and made a duplicate of the key. My relatives were very upset when they noticed the key was missing, so I came to their house in the middle of the night, left the key on their porch, rang the doorbell, and ran away faster than lightning. I waited for the right moment. Their whole family went to Vegas during spring break, and I decided to act. In the middle of the night, after my dad drove them to the airport, I took the duplicate key and quietly sneaked into their house. There, I could finally do what I'd been dreaming of for months. I went straight to the daughter's room, undressed, and felt an adrenaline rush like never before because, essentially, I was committing a crime. I went into her closet and literally dove into her laundry basket, burying myself in her dirty clothes, sniffing them until I was blue in the face, doing everything that came to my hormonal teenage mind. Then I lay on her bed and masturbated, surrounded by her clothes. 30 minutes later, I got nervous because I realized I'd left the lights on in several rooms. I didn't notice the neighbors outside, who were looking at the house and clearly about to call the police. I left through the back door, jumped over the fence, and ran into one of the neighbors who saw my face. He tried to grab my arm, but I was faster and managed to escape. To this day, I'm terrified of going back to their neighborhood, but damn, that was one of the most thrilling moments of my life. It was worth it. I had a habit of stealing underwear. Every time I had the chance to take something from a girl, I did it. I rummaged through the dresser drawers of girls I dated in middle school, daughters of my parents' friends, and sisters of my friends. I still talk to some of those girls, and I often think about how close I came to getting caught red-handed. Once, I was punished at school but not suspended. Instead, they locked me in a room for the whole day. That room was directly connected to the vice principal's office. There was nothing in there but a table and a chair, and I was supposed to do homework all day. After a few hours of boredom, I realized no one was watching me, so I masturbated. The result was left on the carpet. I'm heterosexual, and my two friends, all of us 13 years old, made a snowman with a huge penis. We took turns licking the snowman's dick for about 10 minutes. All three of us got terribly sick the next day and missed a week of school. As a teenager, I rode my bike a lot. One time, I decided to ride to my grandma's house. The round trip was 12 kilometers. I got there, and she wasn't home. On the way back, I started going down a huge hill, about 400 meters long. I was riding no-handed, and suddenly an idea popped into my head. I stuck my hands in my pockets and started masturbating while riding the bike down a pretty steep hill without using my hands. I often think back on that, glad I didn't crash. I took a few explicit photos of my chest and sent them to a complete stranger. I was sure I had deleted the pictures from my parents' computer, but somehow they stayed there, and my parents saw them. I was so embarrassed. Back then, I had an internet connection with a speed of only 56 kilobits per second. I managed to connect to the neighbor's Wi-Fi and downloaded porn. I don't regret it one bit. My parents were worried because I had sleep apnea, or breathing stops for more than 10 seconds during sleep. They made an appointment for me at the hospital, where they hooked me up to a bunch of sensors and asked me not to move. The nurse who attached the sensors was super hot. She told me I needed to fall asleep and left for another room, but I could see her through a window. She was talking and joking with another nurse, and I could hear them. Damn, it was so nice to look at her, so I masturbated. I didn't even suspect they could figure it out from the sensor readings. I was so embarrassed when they showed the chart to my parents and explained what it meant. I glued a golf ball to my balls to see what it would feel like to have 3 testicles. Imagine my horror when I realized the superglue had permanently stuck the ball to my scrotum. I spent about an hour trying to carefully peel it off, but then I thought, screw it, and poured acetone on my scrotum. I'd never been in so much pain in my life. I broke into my ex's car, stole her hoodie, and masturbated while sniffing it. I made an anal opening out of modeling clay and used baby moisturizing oil as lube. I completely forgot about it during a film class where we were assigned a stop-motion clay animation project. I made something out of that clay, and the teacher asked us to bring our creations to class. During the lesson, she took the unused portion of my clay and started kneading it, asking why it was so soft. I stayed silent until the end of the class. She held that piece of clay in her hands, squeezing it like a stress ball. I still remember the squelching sound, squish, squish, squish. I love running, and as a kid, I set a goal to conquer a hill. It was a long and steep hill, and my goal was to run to the top without stopping. It was a tough challenge, more about pushing my limits than just building physical strength. One glorious day, the conditions were perfect, and I managed to conquer the hill. To celebrate, I masturbated right at the top of the hill in broad daylight, in a densely populated suburb near a baseball field full of people. I don't know if anyone saw me, but I got a thrill. It was a feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction in every sense of the word. One time, our internet wasn't working, and I was extremely horny. My parents were away for 2 days to pick up a cat they found online. I went to the attic to find the router's box, hoping it would help fix the internet. I stumbled upon a black shoebox covered in cobwebs. I brushed them off and opened it. Inside was a bunch of black and white photos of some family. One picture showed a woman, probably the mother of the family. I still remember she was wearing a black one-piece swimsuit with a deep enough neckline to make a teenager's heart race. Right there in the attic, I masturbated twice, then took the photo with me and put it in my locker, completely forgetting about it. 2 weeks later, I was in my room when my mom came in looking for the remote. I was so caught up in a video game that I didn't notice her rummaging through my things. When I turned around, I saw she had found my black and white retro porn. I turned bright red and pretended not to notice, but she said, "Name, where did you find this cute photo?" I forgot we even had it. "Look, here's me and Larry." She listed almost all her relatives. I was burning inside because I realized, without knowing it, I had found a photo of my late grandmother. It doesn't get worse than that. I walked across the entire city at 2 a.m. because my girlfriend at the time said she was home alone and wanted to meet up. I was at a friend's house, and he refused to drive me to her. I still hate you, Martin. A girl I met online gave me her address. I masturbated into a small glass bottle, sealed it with wax, and packaged it. I went to the post office and asked the worker if they could send the package in some kind of container with ice. She asked what I was sending, and only then did I realize how weird it was. I apologized, left, and threw the jar away. I spent a whole day at the beach with my parents' friends and their kids. Among them was a girl about my age, and I spent the whole day admiring her figure in a bikini. It started to get to my head. When we were about to leave the beach, I ran to the bathroom because I desperately needed to shit. But given how turned on I was, I chose to masturbate instead. Now I realize I should have just taken a dump and left, or at least done both. Unfortunately, back then, I was super paranoid and worried people would notice I was in the bathroom too long. To my even greater regret, I shat myself later. What an idiot I was. We lived in the middle of nowhere, far from everyone, without even neighbors. Every summer, I didn't see any of my classmates. One time, I made a doll out of old pillows, duct tape, and women's clothes I stole from a friend's house. In my room's closet, there was a small hatch leading to the attic, far from the main staircase, so I was sure no one would ever find my doll. I'd lock the door, play loud rock music so everyone thought I was an angsty teen who needed to be alone, and spend time with the doll. In my senior year, a hurricane caused the attic floor to collapse. Though it's unlikely anyone in the family found my doll, I was terrified of it. When my parents went grocery shopping, I stayed home under some pretense, took Veronica, I think that's what I called her, and brought her to the woods near our house where we had barbecues. I walked down a dark country road to my girlfriend's house in the middle of the night, 10 kilometers one way. I did this several times. Once, I had to run from wild dogs. Another time, while walking that road, I heard the sound of cars and ran into the woods, jumped over a fence, and lay down, waiting for the car to pass. It drove by, and I got up and went back to the road. Then I heard breathing behind me and felt a chill. I turned around and saw a huge dark figure behind me. I hit it and ran. Later, I realized it was just a horse. I punched a horse. That same night, on my way home, I heard another car and jumped into a pile of mud. I didn't realize the pile had to come from somewhere and fell into a 1.5-meter deep ditch. I was more out of breath than ever before, and for a solid 2 seconds, I thought I was going to die. Not to mention, I could have been kidnapped, hit by a car, arrested by the police, shot for trespassing, stabbed by some hobo, kicked by a horse, and so on. Overall, I didn't have too many adventures as a teenager. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new, super interesting discussions. In the meantime, check out our other videos.